Hey all, Kurt Sasso here from TGT Media, the entertainment industry interview podcast, or video show I should say, where we interview the creative minds from the comic, film, music, and game publishing industry, and of course, well, I already said, but I'm your host, Kurt. Happy New Year, everyone. It is 2013. We are joined today. We are starting off this new year properly, right, epically, and all of those other awesome words that I can't think of right now with, of course, Mike Witmer from Pinkerton Park. How you doing today, Mike?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing wonderful, doing wonderful. You know, it's been a while. I've wanted to get you on the show for a long time, actually, and you've been on other wonderful shows like Tom Racine's Tall Tale Radio and a few others as well. But what brings you to this new year? What New Year's resolutions do you have for yourself in Pinkerton Park?
I've kind of adopted with Pinkerton. I'm kind of moving at my own pace these days. For so many years, I was jumping through the hoops with the attempt of getting syndicated and getting in print. And I mean, my goal was always early on to get in newspapers. When that kind of started feeling like a pipe dream after I got destroyed by the editors and the syndicates, I decided to go to focus more on webcomics. I'm not the greatest marketer, I guess you would say. I always wanted to kind of find a situation where I was kind of just drawing things and somebody else was moving them for me. So that's why syndication was such a thing. So with the new year, I just kind of decided that I'm going to move at my own pace and put out comics when I'm inspired to put them out. I know that I catch flack from my readers on a regular basis for it, but I'd rather put them out. I'd rather put out comics when I feel inspired to do so, rather than force them out and have them be not what I want them to be. You know. Mm-hmm. So for the new year, other than not becoming homeless, I decided I'm just gonna move at my own pace and kind of take things one day at a time.
Well, it sounds like the Mega Tokyo model, basically, where things get posted whenever they get posted, but it's still amazing content and quality as well.
Well, and it's nice with technology today. I mean, the average reader, the average internet user today is using RSS feeds and stuff, so they know when new stuff posts rather than sitting around wondering. But I still catch flack on a regular basis for not updating regularly or that kind of thing. So, but it was funny. I was on Facebook yesterday, and one of my Facebook friends was joking about how I never post an update, and I said something about I do Pinkerton for me. I said my readers are just collateral damage. So some people might take that the wrong way, but that's just basically what it is. I want to have fun with it and do it rather than get burnt out on it, and it's easy to get burnt out on doing a comic strip, especially the guys that are doing it 7 days a week. I was there. I don't want to go back to that at all.
How does one maintain sanity when doing it that long? I mean, how have you remained so sane that long?
Well, and it's funny because Pinkerton wasn't my first comic strip. My first comic strip was called 44 Union Avenue, and that one was in a handful of newspapers, and it was 7 days a week, and it was grueling. I mean, and it takes up a major portion of your life. And then when you mix, you have family and you have kids and you have everything else, something ends up suffering. So I just wanted to enjoy myself with it, and I always felt kind of like if I'm having fun with it, then the readers will kind of feel that it's fun rather than getting stale and boring and tired, and so that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, the one question I normally ask, which I didn't because I wanted to see what you were doing for the new year with Pinkerton and yourself for that matter, was, for those that have never actually been to pinkertonpark.com, I believe it is, what is it all about?
I don't know. I kind of modeled it off of the, in my mind, it's kind of like Cheers, I guess. It's basically four guys sitting around getting into trouble. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're there's no real running theme as far as there's no plot. It's just kind of these guys just get into these kind of antics that end up sometimes turning into epic storylines, so to speak. I mean, other you know, I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, you've been doing it for a while. I mean, obviously you're still enjoying doing it, and you're taking the time to be a quality comic artist as well as a writer at that. So then what challenges besides thinking up storylines have you had to go through in order to keep interested in the comic?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for me, it's not so much writing the storylines; they kind of come naturally for me. But I really want to try to. I've always, especially recently, I mean, in the last couple of years, I've really tried to focus more on who the characters were rather than the gags. I write my scripts, for a lack of a better word, my scripts. I usually write them in my emails because I have my phone with me. I can just type them and send them, and there they are. And I spend a lot of time wondering, once the script is done, once the gag is written or whatever, I wonder, well, would Buckley actually say that? Or so I try to I've really tried to look a little deeper into how these characters are and kind of stay true to them. Because I've noticed with some of the strips I read, and I try to read a lot of people's strips just even for motivation or even for inspiration or whatever. But if you take that character, a specific character out of its comfort zone too far, it kind of kills the illusion, I guess. Does that make sense? When you every once in a while you'll read a strip and you go, whoa, that was so unlike that character to do that. And if you're smart about it, it works, but sometimes it just feels like you're grabbing at straws. So I really kind of wanted to get deep into who the characters were and try and make sure I understand their voices. So that's my biggest struggle, I think. I never really have a problem with coming up with the jokes. It's whether or not I think the jokes are good enough.
Well, then what about obviously there's an old saying that says, writing stories are easy, writing comedy is hard. I mean, if you have a warped sense of humor, I mean, like I do, it kind of makes the off the cuff jokes or the ones that just pop into your head that much easier, it seems.
I have more trouble. I have a lot more trouble with doing like the one-off gags. Like if I've tried and I could never do a single panel strip that was like this, just a self-contained gag. I've always been able to kind of start a storyline and write a joke based on the last joke in the strip, kind of keep it moving. But if I had to come up with a different joke every day that was self-contained and not within a storyline, I probably would have jumped off a roof a long time.
Well, on a one-story house, that's pretty difficult, but you could always have the dog push you off.
Yeah. Right.
Well, then talk about this. Then, I mean, and now correct me if I'm wrong, because I might have read this a while back, but I believe you had a blog post about how you were dissatisfied with webcomics in general as a business model. I could be wrong on that.
Well, I am. I mean, I think it's a very difficult model, and I think it's difficult for a number of reasons. And the biggest reason, I think, is because the internet is free. So, as soon as you jump into that sea of webcomics, you're competing against not only the good people, but the tons of really bad people out there. You know what I mean? Like it's just anybody can put a webcomic up. So you really have to be on your game. I mean, the internet is an easy lure for people to come in and start putting their content out there, but then you're competing against everybody. So there's a few things that I was always drawn to with comics in general. I mean, I've been doing the comic thing solidly since 2000. Before, and that was even kind of midstream of when webcomics were really kind of a big thing. So for me, there's a couple different things that kind of annoy me. Number one is, like I said, is the sheer number of just free stuff out there. I mean, you just get lost in the mix unless you find some way to scream from a mountaintop and make sure everybody hears you. And the other thing is, I've always been a little bit frustrated, and I struggle with the instant gratification or the instant feedback. You know what I mean? You have a comment section on your website, or you have a Facebook page, and people can just immediately reply. They can immediately get back to you, and it can derail you from a standpoint of, you know, your storyline or anything. I mean, I've written strips and then that I thought were really well, and I probably should have just disabled the comments section on it, because as soon as I put it out there, you know, the ones that I really like either get poor feedback or they get shot down. So so the instant feedback is another thing that I think twice about on a regular basis. You know,
we'll keep going with that thought too. But I've seen some webcomic people take to the comments as part of the community building.
Yeah.
Other people take to it where they do not have comments at all. They've disabled it completely, either because their comics are either too large or sorry, the damn phone was ringing. It's not even my phone, it's the cross street. Anyhow, the people that disable the comments either can't handle the feedback that they're getting. They feel that the instant gratification is either detrimental to their style as a creator, or they just can't handle criticism. How do you feel?
I can handle criticism. I don't mind that, because quite honestly, like I said, I do the strip because I really like to do it. I don't. If people don't like what I'm doing, then I say don't read it. I get frustrated really with the people that try to guess where the storyline is going. You know what I mean? Like, I get people and the other thing is that bothers me about the comments section is, you know, they're using it as a form to advertise their own work. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's why the larger web cartoonists, the big guys out there, I think that's why they kill their comment section, because people aren't commenting. For the most part, they're not commenting because they like your strip. They're commenting so they're hoping they'll get a ping back or something like that, you know. But for me, I guess I'd rather. I don't need to get the comments from people that they liked it or they hated it or whatever. So I guess the question why I even have the comments in the first place. But yeah, that instant feedback thing can be a little daunting, and it can kind of derail you. And it's easy to get caught up in too. I mean, you get so focused in what you're doing with your storyline, you're so focused in the world that you're creating, and then you start reading the comment section and you realize, it kind of takes you out of that kind of mode. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. It's hard. It's a struggle to deal with. And, you know, you're right. Some people, I know plenty of artists who are amazing at using that comment section to their advantage, and amazing at harnessing there's that feedback to do something to go further with what they're doing. I don't know. I want to do my thing, and I don't really want anybody to tell me how to do my thing, and that's probably why I'm such a huge failure.
For a person that has done comics for over 12 years, Mike, I don't consider you a failure. More than anything, I consider you consistent. I mean, that's a good thing. The fact that you are able to persevere for 12 years in an industry as soul-crushing, as detrimental, as fun as it can be, you've persevered for a good number of years.
I think the only reason I've persevered is out of stubbornness more than anything, and the fact that I have a day job. You know,
it helps. Yeah. Well, then, in going with Pinkerton Park here, you're obviously you've kept things fun for yourself, and that's the ultimate goal here. But has there been ever any collaborations that you've done with other comic creators, be it webcomic or otherwise, that you'd like to talk about?
Well, the Tall Tale Features thing, the Tom Racine's podcast, that started out as a collective. I started that collective, I don't even remember what years ago, and it was with a bunch of really great cartoonists. It was Lucas from Imagine That, and Irma, and Tom, and Scott Metzger, and it was just a ton of people. And my thought was we can bring a community together and kind of feed off of each other and build off of each other's audience. But the part that I really didn't think about was the fact that all of us are too busy to put that extra work in. You know what I mean? The people that are working that hard, I think, don't have a whole lot of free time to throw things to other people. I've done guest strips for a couple people that I really like, and it's always been fun. It's fun. It's interesting for me to see how other people get their work done. I'm always inspired by that. I very recently, and when I say recently, within the last year, I went fully digital. I was drawing everything on paper and then scanning and then doing the rest of it in Photoshop. But now that I'm fully digital, and I went digital with the help of a lot of people. It took me a while to really want to make that move, but some of my favorite artists and friends kind of pushed me in that direction, and I'm glad that they did. So from a community standpoint, I like collaborating with people. I'd much rather collaborate with people that I think are working really hard and are hungry to do it. You know what I mean? There's people that are established and maybe not so aggressive with what they do. Yeah. I like seeing the people that are kind of coming up that I think are good and really kind of hitting it out of the park, because there's a lot of energy there. There's quite a few out there that I like. I really like Bug Comic. That's a lot of fun. There's artists out there that I have a whole lot of respect for because of their humor, and they just, they probably feel the same way I do, where they're getting a little burnout. I mentioned Scott Metzger earlier. That guy does some great stuff, and I wish that he was working full time, but he kind of hit the wall a while back, the same way we all do. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for the people that are really, really working it hard.
Quick question for you. I'm going back to school for university for visual arts communication, so I get to learn how to draw and all that other stuff. Sorry, I'm a computer guy. I've never really picked up a pencil or whatever. You can tell by my artwork on Facebook. Yeah, it's going to be hilarious this semester. What is art to you, though?
It's kind of funny. When I got out of high school, the first thing I did was I went to art college. And the first year I was in there, I started thinking, well, how do you grade art? How do you put a grade on somebody's interpretation of something else? And it just really started to not make sense to me. I think to me, art is your way of expression. And some people are very good at expressing it very minimally, and some people are amazing with a pencil. If you ever seen some of the stuff that Mark Lapierre does, I just want to kill the guy every time he puts something. And it's so effortless. I've sat with him at comic conventions and stuff, and he'll be able to pull images out of his head and draw it, kind of stuff. So to me, I think art is just kind of a form of expression. There's no there's no rules to it. There's no, this is how you do it. So I would say to anybody, and I have said this, and sometimes I get smacked around for it, but I would say don't try to copy anybody else. Don't let anybody else tell you how to do your thing. And practice. I think that if it's something that you really want to do, and you'll find your voice, it won't be. I think the best artists out there are the ones that probably don't like their work a whole lot. They're always looking for a new way to kind of express things, and I think that's kind of part of the burnout with webcomics is when you're doing it 7 days a week, you kind of lose that ability to stop and think, and how can I tweak this a little bit? How can I express this a little? How can I try new things? Because you get so stuck in your format and your character appearance and your line work, and if you stray from that a little bit, you're worried that people aren't going to get it. So, go ahead.
I was going to say, have you ever had the time to experiment, though, to step back from what you're doing and really try something different?
I experiment, especially since I went digital. I've noticed that I experiment a lot more because I never really had the luxury of or the means to really get into like brush art or painting or that kind of thing. So with the Wacom, with Bamboo Tablet and then Photoshop, I've started using different brush techniques. Matter of fact, when I went digital, when I was doing the Pinkerton on, originally I started out with doing pencil sketches and mechanical pens, like rapidograph pens. Now that I'm on the digital format, I migrated away from that style, and it's more of a brush, and I like it. It was scary at first, and it was messy from I wasn't getting ink everywhere, obviously, because it was digital, but it was messy. The line art was sloppy, but I started seeing that it was a little more expressive, and it was a little less precise, I guess, which I like. I really like that. I've always been a fan of the guys that are a little wild with their line art, so making that was an experiment for me, and I still play around with it a lot,
The term organic art gets thrown around a lot at my school for some reason. I have no clue what the hell it is. Can you give me an explanation?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I thought I'd throw that out to you.
I think when, in my mind, when you talk about organic, it's just kind of a little more feel and a little less accuracy, maybe. You can definitely feel more of an emotion behind something that seems a little more off the cuff and, like you said, organic. There's some artists out there that are amazingly technical. I've seen pictures that people have drawn that look like photographs that you had to look twice to see that it was actually a painting, which is amazing. But again, it doesn't seem as expressive as somebody who interpreted it and kind of reproduced it with their own kind of style and emotion behind it. So maybe that's what they mean. I don't know.
Be a little more loose with your lines and all that.
Well, yeah, but we're just loose with everything. Just stretching it a little bit.
I'll give that a try. It's going to be interesting. Let's just say.
What are you going? What kind of drawing are you doing in those classes?
We'll be doing life drawing. Apparently, if you mention the term comic and or cartoon, you get shunned.
Oh, so you're doing sketching and that kind of thing, like
sketching, charcoal,
naked people.
Naked people, yeah. Apparently, we'll be doing guys and girls. I'm more preferential to women personally, but
when I went to art school, the first time we had a live sketch, we didn't know it was going to be nude or anything, and this humongous fat guy walks in, got a robe on, and everybody in the class just at the same time goes, "Oh shit!" And the robe hit the floor, and I had to throw my hand over my mouth to keep from going, "Oh!"
I can't believe the body looks like that. Oh my god! There are no shapes that can describe that.
I'm lucky I wasn't like on the backside of them though. So
Hopefully we're side profile, but maybe even that. So I better choose my seat properly, huh?
well, you might not have a choice. If you guys sit around in a circle, you're doomed to however the professor positions your subject.
Apparently we're all standing for 3 hours a day, so
Oh.
that'll be interesting. Better get comfortable shoes, eh? There was a question by Tom Racine, and he said, and this was kind of interesting, he goes, why do bald men have more power than haired men with hair?
Tom and I are the dynamic bald duo. I don't know, maybe we're making up for our lack of follicles maybe. I don't know. Either that or he was just trying to make me feel good. You might have been doing that too. I don't know.
Probably both. Is there anything for the listeners and fans of yours that get to watch this as well as listen to the show here? Because this is both audio and visual. Is there anything that you want to impart as maybe a New Year's resolution for those out there, or a goal that other people can set for themselves?
As far as my readers are concerned, I just want them to enjoy what I do. I don't really expect anything in return. I mean, the biggest thing that I could get from them is to pass my stuff on to somebody else. I like having, I have some very loyal readers who have been around. Some of them have been around since the first strip I put out. So I guess all I really want to say is thanks for sticking around with me when I'm, because I go through, like I said, I go through these phases or life gets in the way where I won't put out a new strip for a month. But they come back and all I really want to say is thanks,
That's awesome. And what was the hardest transition from traditional to digital for you?
Just, the hardest thing was, like I said, I have a bamboo tablet. So the hardest thing was drawing on a table and looking at a screen while I draw. You know what I mean? Because when you're drawing on your paper, you see where your line's going to go. So that was really tough. It took me a while to get used to. And then the other thing was, it's pressure sensitive. I have it set so like with the brush, so the harder I press, the line gets wider or it bleeds a little more. So some of that, I think it was just more of a technique than anything. I was really terrified at first that my style was going to change like night and day. But I noticed it. But most of the people actually kind of have said that it's an improvement. When if you go back and you look at the early Pinkerton strips, they're very angular, and that's kind of gone away as time evolved, and I got more I would say fast, for lack of better words, quicker at doing what I do. I kind of got away from that angular style, but being able to use that brush really brought out kind of a new level of expression. But it was definitely hard to get used to when I switched over. I mean, by the time I was coming to an end of drawing on paper, I could draw a strip and I could pencil it and ink it in 35 minutes maybe. And then when I switched over to the digital, I was back to kind of the old days where it was taking me an hour and a half, 2 hours to do a strip. And I'm finally starting to get back to kind of being a little more proficient at it. So it was just that difference of technique, that kind of trusting your hand and watching it move on the screen. That was a tough spot for me.
It's a little like blind drawing, huh?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I literally the first couple of times I did it, I know this is silly, but the first couple of times I tried it, I got a little seasick, because I was focusing so hard on the screen, and I'm doing my thing, and my hand was cramping up because I'm surprised I didn't crack the pen style. I was bearing down on that thing, and I was all nervous, but it got easier as it went on.
I was gonna say, why are my characters etched hard into my bamboo now?
I guess my character's drawn on the tablet.
Good stuff. Well, we'll leave it at that, Mike. Now, of course, you can always read Mike's amazing work at pinkertonpark.com. He's always available you're on the Twitter as well, right?
Yep, I'm also on Go Comics as well.
Oh, Go Comics, yes, right. And that's gocomics.com.
Mm-hmm.
And so is Tom as well. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's great to see him on there too. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for coming on the show. Really appreciate this. This is a great start of a new year. Happy 2013 to you and your family there. And may you have a wonderful rest of your time on 2013.
Thank you. You too.